Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Then they came to Capernaum, and on the Sabbath Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. The people were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. In their synagogue was a man with an unclean spirit. He cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus rebuked him and said, "Quiet, come out of him." The unclean spirit convulsed him, and with a loud cry came out of him. All were amazed and asked one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." His fame spread everywhere throughout the whole region of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord. Jesus Christ. After a 20-year partnership that brought the New England Patriots 6 Super Bowl titles and 9 total appearances in the big game, the greatest football coach of all time, Bill Belichick, and the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, finally parted ways last year. It's a little unclear how it happened. I'm not sure if Bill Belichick cast his quarterback out into the outer darkness, wanting to move on from a nearly 45-year-old quarterback who must be on his last legs by now, or if Tom Brady simply wanted to play out the end of his career in warmer weather and for a less strict coach. But however it happened, Tom Brady found himself down in Tampa Bay, and a great debate began. Who was more responsible for the unparalleled level of success that the Patriots had for the last 20 years, the coach or the quarterback? Now, those who would say the coach would point out that all the great defenses that the Patriots had over the years, it wasn't just the quarterback. In fact, the year that Tom Brady injured his knee and was out for the season, the Patriots still won 11 games. But those who would say the quarterback would say, hey, until Tom Brady showed up on the scene, Bill Belichick had a losing record as a football coach. He only had 1 career playoff victory. Well, now these former partners are considered bitter rivals, at least in the media that likes to sensationalize such things. And they're locked in a bitter fight to see who really is the greatest of all time. And given the fact that Tom Brady just made another Super Bowl with another team, he clearly has the advantage. In the gospel today, we see 2 other figures locked in a bitter struggle to see who really is the greatest. But this struggle is a little bit more one-sided. It's a little bit more clear who has the advantage here. You see, at the beginning of Mark's gospel, we're going to be reading Mark's gospel all year, St. Mark is at pains to show that Jesus is the greatest of all time. Jesus has power to defeat all of the great enemies of life. And Mark depicts him going through them all almost systematically, one by one. Jesus defeats illness when he reaches out and he cures Peter's mother-in-law. The fever leaves her immediately. Jesus defeats the unruly powers of nature when he calms that great storm on the sea. Jesus defeats sin when he says to the paralytic man, "Child, your sin is forgiven you." And he even defeats death when he says to Jairus' daughter, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." One by one, Jesus is going through all these enemies and defeating them, like the 2007 undefeated New England Patriots. They just went through every opponent. No one could stop them. They were clearly the best. But today, Jesus has to face one more great opponent, and that's the devil. Maybe the most fearsome foe yet. And a man with an unclean spirit comes to Jesus in the synagogue in Capernaum, and that evil spirit begins to battle with Jesus. "I know who you are, Jesus of Nazareth. Have you come to destroy us?" Now, the correct answer to that question is yes. That's exactly what Jesus has come to do. It says in another place in the New Testament, the reason why the Son of God appeared in the world was to destroy the works of the devil. Jesus came to establish the kingdom of God on earth and supplant the kingdom of Satan. The kingdom of Satan had a nice long run in the world there, like the Patriots, but now it's over. God has sent Jesus, someone more powerful, to establish his kingdom. And this incident in the synagogue at Capernaum is going to be the great test to see which of those kingdoms is more powerful. Now, that battle that Jesus is in, that spiritual battle, is a battle that we're all in as well. We're all in a spiritual battle. Now, like Jesus, the devil is not our only enemy in that battle. Every time we sin, we can't always blame the devil. The devil made me do it is not a very good excuse for sin. Actually, there are many reasons why we might sin. We have just our fallen desires within us. We have the world around us that tells so many lies and confuses us. And Catholic tradition actually says there's at least 3 opponents that we all have in the spiritual battle: the world, the flesh, and the devil. But those opponents are real, and the spiritual battle is real. Every day we're in a battle to hang on to our identity as children of God. We're in a battle for our families, to keep them united, to keep them on track and united to Christ. We're in a battle to keep out enough distraction and busyness in our life to pray and worship God every day. We're in a battle to speak out and defend the rights of the oppressed. All of these things are daily battles. And maybe we can learn something from the greatest competitors of all time, people like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and yes, even Jesus, about how to fight these spiritual battles. I think we can learn at least 3 lessons tonight. The first lesson is, make sure you're fighting the right opponent. Like I said, the media is trying to get Tom Brady and Bill Belichick to fight each other in this kind of made-up battle. But they're too smart for that. They're too smart for that type of media manipulation. They know that the only opponent they have to worry about is whoever they're facing next Sunday. A few years ago in their press conference, Bill Belichick famously said, "We're on to Cincinnati." It was after a terrible loss, and the Patriots could have been attacking each other, but instead he just kept saying, "We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to the next opponent." Tom Brady knows he's not fighting his old coach this week. He's fighting the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are the only opponents that matter this week, and he can't get distracted by these made-up battles. The devil is always trying to distract us from the real battle that's at hand with anything else, any other controversy that we can come up with. The devil's strategy is to divide and conquer, and if he can get Christians to fight each other, this idea fighting that idea, this group fighting that group, then he knows he's already won. He can sit back and laugh all the way to victory. The devil knows that if we're united, then he doesn't stand a chance because we have the power of Christ behind us. And so we have to stay laser focused on what the real battle in our spiritual life. And that's what Jesus does. That unclean spirit tries to use this tactic. He tries to embroil Jesus in every controversy of the day. Jesus, who are you really? Jesus, who really has authority to cast out an unclean spirit? Jesus, those scribes and Pharisees, they think differently. They must be the real enemies. But Jesus just puts all that controversy aside. He ignores it all, and he remains laser focused on the one enemy in the room. Quiet, come out of him. The second lesson that we can learn for our spiritual battle from these great competitors is to not only play the game on Sunday. Tom Brady, long before he ever steps onto the field, has gone through this incredible diet and fitness plan that he does. He never eats anything unhealthy. He's always worried about flexibility and pliability so that he has strength for the long term. So when he gets to game day, all that avocado ice cream he's eating is paying off. He's ready to go. Bill Belichick, before he ever gets to game day, is spending hours in the film room studying the strengths and the weaknesses of his opponent. He has a great game plan by the time he gets to Sunday. And the same thing is true of us in our Christian life. We can't play the game only on Sunday. Coming here to Sunday Mass is our celebration of God's victory, but the real battle takes place during the week. I was talking to a priest friend of mine last week, and somehow we got onto the topic of limericks. Now, I don't know any limericks, but he did, and he taught me this one. Patty Murphy went to Mass. He never missed a Sunday. But Patty Murphy went to hell for what he did on Monday. It's a very nice limerick. And it reminds us that the real battle takes place during the week. It's those daily habits and disciplines of prayer and worship, of community and service, of fighting temptation and sin in our daily lives that matter. It was those disciplines that Jesus had. Notice where this battle with the unclean spirit takes place. It takes place in the synagogue in Capernaum on the Sabbath. Presumably, Jesus had the discipline of going to the synagogue every Sabbath, of praying and worshiping God and listening to God's word. He went to the temple at all the right feasts. He had daily prayer with his Father. He surrounded himself with community so that when the battle came, he was ready. He was in a place of strength rather than in a place of weakness. What better place to be than in the synagogue to fight the evil spirit? Surrounded by prayer, surrounded by community. He had home field advantage. Of course he was going to win. The third lesson we can learn is to not get discouraged by initial defeat. One of the most amazing statistics from Tom Brady's career is that every single season in his career that he has lost the first game of the season, he has gone on to make the Super Bowl that year. This year was no exception. He lost to the Saints back in week 1, but he's in the Super Bowl again because he just doesn't give up. He doesn't let a first loss discourage him. He's had so many interceptions and lost games, lost Super Bowls. He was down 28-3 famously in one Super Bowl. He just doesn't give up. He's 45 years old and he still won't give up, much to the chagrin of the rest of the NFL, because he just keeps going. And again, there's a great lesson in there for us, because one of the tactics the devil loves to use the most is to get us to think we are already defeated, to get us to stop fighting. Because we've sinned once, he gets us to think, well, we might as well just keep on sinning. Because we've been tempted, we haven't even sinned, we've just been tempted, he gets us to think it's all over. He knows that if we just keep fighting, we will be victorious. And as long as we are fighting, we are victorious, because we have the power of God. Jesus, there were so many times in Jesus' life when he was exhausted, when he was frustrated by the lack of belief in the people he was trying to reach. Of course, there was the moment where he felt ultimately defeated on the cross. But all of that was just sowing the seeds for the ultimate victory of the resurrection. And the same is true in our lives. If we use even our falls as opportunities to reconnect with God's grace, which is always more powerful than our sin, to go to confession, to forgive people in our life that have hurt us, to renounce spirits of fear and defeat and anger and lust and envy and greed, and reclaim our identity as children of God, then we'll begin to take back that territory from the enemy. We'll begin to win that spiritual battle. So 3 lessons. Don't get discouraged by initial defeat. Don't play only on Sundays. And what's the other one? Don't focus on the real enemy. Though because of those 3 lessons, Tom Brady is about to play in his 10th Super Bowl next week. We'll be at Mass, but he'll be in the Super Bowl. Well, maybe it'll be a short Mass, we'll see. Because of those 3 lessons, Jesus easily defeated the evil spirit in the synagogue in Capernaum. And with these 3 lessons, we too can be victorious.